Welcome, everyone. You're here for the 2025 Restoration Authority Grants webinar today. I'm Linda Tong, Deputy Program Manager for the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority. And I'm joined here by Sarah Haugen, the Authority's Grant Program Coordinator and Project Manager, and Katya Biener, our current Sea Grant Fellow. We are recording this webinar, so we will run through our slides first, and there'll be time at the end to take any questions. And you can feel free to add questions through the chat or Q&A as well. And I'll get started. Thank you. Well, just a quick intro. What is the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority? We are a regional agency that was created to fund shoreline habitat projects that will protect, restore, and enhance San Francisco Bay. And our jurisdiction is the shoreline of the 9 counties in the San Francisco Bay Area. It doesn't exclude the Delta Primary Zone, which we do have a map of in our grant round materials. And to accomplish the Restoration Authority's mission, Measure AA was passed in 2016 to generate funds for these purposes. Measure AA, the San Francisco Bay Clean Water, Pollution Prevention, and Habitat Restoration Program, is a $12 per year parcel tax that generates funds over 20 years for restoration around San Francisco Bay. Next, please. Thank you. Our general funding requirement for Restoration Authority projects is based on grant requirements in the Restoration Authority Act of 2008 and Measure AA from 2016. The Restoration Authority can fund habitat projects that will restore, protect, or enhance tidal wetlands, manage ponds, or natural habitats along the shoreline. We can also fund flood management features that are part of a habitat project. And we can fund public access or recreational amenities that are part of a habitat project. And these are the grantees that are eligible for our funding. We can provide grants to federal, state, and local agencies, tribal governments, nonprofit organizations, and owners or operators of shoreline parcels. Again, the locations that are eligible for our grants are along the shorelines of the 9 counties of the San Francisco Bay Area. And there is more detail within our grant round materials that list out specific shoreline areas, and there are maps in our request for proposals as well. We've gotten the question, well, what do you mean by, along the shoreline of the San Francisco Bay? This does cover a range of habitats ranging from subtidal, which is the area lying below mean low tide, to baylands habitat, which is area that lies between the max and min elevations of tides, as well as transition zones, and that is uplands habitat that's adjacent to potential or actual tidal wetlands that may be able to provide transitional habitat, marsh migration space, as well as areas that are needed to enhance the project's resilience in the face of sea level rise. These are the project phases that are eligible for funding. We can fund projects from acquisition of property through planning and design and permitting, all the way through construction, implementation, monitoring and maintenance of a project. And regardless of what project phase you are requesting funds for, We ask that you all think about how to engage communities early on. Partnerships are a key component to a competitive application. The grant application will ask how the project seeks community involvement and what community benefits are expected to come out of a project. And we'll go into that in further detail later on in this presentation. I'll go into the 4 programs of Measure AA now that make up our eligibility criteria. The first program of Measure AA is a Safe Clean Water and Pollution Prevention Program. And some activities that fall under this program include improving water quality by reducing pollution and engaging in restoration activities, reducing pollution levels through shoreline cleanup and trash removal, and restoring wetlands that provide natural filters and remove pollution. The second program of Measure AA is the Vital Fish, Bird, and Wildlife Habitat Program. Eligible activities include enhancing shoreline parks and open space preserves, other public lands for expanded and improved habitat for fish, birds, and mammals, providing for stewardship, maintenance, and monitoring of habitat restoration projects to ensure ongoing benefits to wildlife and people. This language is within our request for proposals as well, and these slides will be made available after this webinar. The third Measure A program is the Natural Flood Protection Program, and under this, eligible activities include providing nature-based flood protection through wetland and habitat restoration. We're also able to fund the building and improving of levees that are a necessary part of wetland restoration projects. And lastly, under our Shoreline Public Access Program, we seek to fund safer and improved public access as part of and compatible with habitat restoration projects. Some of these public access features may include constructing new or repairing existing public trails, signs, and related facilities along the shoreline. We also support funding interpretive materials and special outreach events about pollution prevention, wildlife habitat, public access, and flood protection to protect the bay's health and to encourage community engagement. I'll pass on the next set of slides to Sarah.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. So Linda went over Measure AA, the Restoration Authority, and the program areas. I'll be talking about the grant round, some of our solicitation priorities, and other things that get considered in our scoring. So we're in the period right now of submitting pre-applications. This is so that we can give you feedback on your project idea and help give you ideas for how to make a strong application. We encourage you to do this before late September so that there's time for us to give you feedback and for you to implement it in your full application. Those are due early October 6th this year. In the fall and winter, staff and our advisory committee members will be reviewing applications. We'll be making recommendations in 2026, and that's how the cycle flows each year. A little more detail on that. As I mentioned, we're in the pre-app period. We strongly encourage you to submit one by September 19th. This gives us time to schedule a meeting with you ahead of our full app deadline. You'll submit all of this to our grants@sfbrastore.org email address. I'll talk about our prioritization criteria in a moment, but just want to flag the San Francisco Bay joint venture is one of our priorities is that you get adopted by their program. They look at projects for their different habitat restoration qualities. And it's a plus for your application if you get adopted by their board. So they have a meeting coming up in August. So if you happen to be ready with a pre-app, you can reach out to Gemma Williams to submit that to be considered. But if you're not ready yet, it's okay. They have one in the fall, and you can just mention your application that you're seeking adoption from them. Back to the schedule. Our award dates are generally in the spring or summer of the following year. So keep that in mind as you draft your schedule for your project. You realistically can't start until spring or summer of next year. And more information on this is available at our grants webpage. Now for the prioritization criteria, this is an area of scoring that we have. We look at greatest positive impact, greatest long-term impact. We look at geographic distribution of our various projects, how applicants are leveraging different grant sources and partnerships. Are they benefiting economically disadvantaged communities, the local economy, engaging youth and adults? Are you incorporating monitoring, maintenance, and stewardship after your project's completed? How might these projects be contributing to landscape scale, ecological characteristics? Are these projects engaging with local tribes? And considering the selection criteria of the Coastal Conservancy, BCDC, and the joint venture. A project doesn't have to ace all of these categories. You could meet a few of them very well, but just keep in mind, this is what we look at for our projects. There's also a likelihood of success criteria. And this is, us thinking, evaluating how likely this applicant will succeed in the project they're proposing. So we like to see, does the applicant have a history of implementing projects in the past, or at least have the resources to succeed in doing so? How is the budget planned out? Is it reasonable? Is it well thought out? What's the scope? Is it clear how you'll maintain the project afterwards? What kind of partners do you have? How are you leveraging those? And as I said before, building in monitoring and maintenance. And also looking at community engagement through support letters from your partners. We want to see that you're involved in the community where the project's taking place. It's helpful to, if you're working in an economically disadvantaged community, we have this map available on our website if you want to see if your project takes place in one. And are you coordinating with local jurisdictions? All of these things are in our RFP, so we keep mentioning. A little more on what we mean by innovative partnerships and community benefits. So innovative partnerships can be, we define that as two or more stakeholder groups working together to creatively develop and implement a multi-benefit project. And this collaboration can be between, CBOs, environmental groups, local government, any other kind of traditional or non-traditional partners. We just like to see forms of collaboration that helps make a project stronger. And as I mentioned before, benefiting the local community, especially EDCs. This involves direct involvement with local groups and a track record of working with these communities to help increase the relevance of your outreach. We also want to see how your project might be alleviating stressors in these communities, such as for public access, resilience to climate change, leadership development, things like that. And the Coastal Conservancy has a helpful document, Tips for Meaningful Community Engagement. That's linked in the slides. And as Linda mentioned, these will be available after our presentation. Some tips for a successful application. So as I mentioned, Linda went over the eligibility criteria. Those are 20 points. I talked about the prioritization criteria. Those are worth 40. And the likelihood of success is also worth 40 points. In addition to quantitative scoring, we also do a qualitative evaluation of top 3 strengths and weaknesses and any follow-up questions. That's what our reviewers will be looking at. I'll say again, really encourage you to submit a pre-application to get feedback. It helps us know what's coming through the door and also help you have a strong application. The application packet, which you'll submit to the grants web email, includes the PDF cover page. This is important. It helps us understand at a glance what you're trying to do and is helpful for our records. There's the Word doc application and an Excel budget. All of these are very important for us to understand what you're trying to do. Also include any project maps and designs that are relevant to your project, any photos that help us understand your project. And if you're planning to do a project on land that you do not own, we ask that you include a letter from the landowner showing that they support what you're trying to do. This does not have to be a formal agreement yet. We just want to note that there's buy-in from the landowner. And similarly, if you're naming tribes as partners in your application, we want to see a letter from them confirming that they too believe that they're a partner in your project, making sure that that collaboration is happening. And you can include other support letters, but if you're selected, we would then ask for, you can include those later if you're selected to go to the board. So that's just optional at this stage. And again, all this is on our website as well. And then just to share a few examples of projects we've funded through the grant round. One example of a smaller planning project, at least smaller in funds, was the Greenwood Gravel Beach Design Project. This was to Marin County Department of Public Works. They developed plans and obtained permits to build nature-based shoreline protection in a valuable coarse-grained beach habitat. Another example of a larger implementation project was the Lower Walnut Creek Restoration Project. This was just under $8 million to the Contra Costa County Flood Control and Water Conservation District. They restored a creekside wetland habitat by breaching levees and reintroducing the tides to diked former baylands. This is known now as Pacheco Marsh. They just had their public opening a few months ago, so you can actually go check it out. It's very beautiful and restored. But just this is just to demonstrate the range of projects we can fund. Even if you have a smaller project, if it has a lot of value, we're happy to review it as part of our suite of projects. So that's my section. I'm going to now pass it to Katya to talk about our community grants.
All right, so I'll be going over our community grants program. So this is a program designed with increased staff support in development of the project, including before the project is recommended to the board for funding. So this is the application process. You'll first submit an application and then schedule a consultation. We will talk with you about it, you'll get feedback, and then you'll submit a revised application. Once this is done, the staff and AC will review this application. We will provide technical assistance as needed, write your staff recommendation, and then recommend it to the board for funding. So this is kind of how the timeline works for things. We accept community grants applications on a rolling basis. So it's not like the regular grant round where you will have to apply by October. These are accepted on a rolling basis. The application is currently available on the website. Initial and revised applications are also, like I said, accepted on a rolling basis. You will email these to grants@sfbrastore.org. And then we support community-based organizations with our community grants program. So you have to be a CBO. And then our maximum amount of funding is $300,000 per project. And if you'd like more information, you can visit our website link for community grants. So eligible projects for community grants involve any of the following things on this slide: community visioning led by CBOs in economically disadvantaged communities. We also support training for EDC leaders to develop, apply for, and implement small shoreline habitat projects. We also support CBOs in gaining knowledge of shoreline issues, building relationship with government agencies and nonprofits, and also implementation of shoreline habitat projects with strong community benefits. So once again, this is a program just to support projects led by CBOs that might have lower capacities that are specifically in economically disadvantaged communities. So the staff will work with the applicant to develop full proposals that can be recommended to the board for funding. Next up, we have our Measure AA prioritization criteria. So Sarah did go through this list in previous slides. So we want projects that have a great positive impact, a great long-term impact. We want a good geographic distribution, projects that leverage state and federal dollars, as well as public-private partnerships. And then this one is one of the more important prioritization criteria is projects that benefit EDCs. They also benefit the region's economy. And then we also really want projects that engage youth and young adults. And then also incorporate monitoring, maintenance, and stewardship, and meet the selection criteria of the State Conservancy, the SFBRA Conservation and Development Commission, and the SFBRA joint venture. So then some more specific prioritization criteria for the community grants program. We prioritize projects that achieve specific community benefits in the foreseeable future. So these are kind of shorter, hopefully seeing benefits on the shorter term within 5 years. Include a well-defined community engagement process. So we want to make sure that you're really engaging with your community and have some sense of urgency. So some opportunity that may be missed if you don't have this kind of funding, or perhaps there's some pressing need within your community. We like to fund projects and help out those types of endeavors. So then we also have a likelihood of success criteria. So applicants are assessed based on your capacity and resources to complete and maintain the project. This involves things like applicant history. Do you have a history of completing projects like this successfully? If you have a good budget and schedule, these things make sense and it looks like an attainable project, as well as strong partnerships with other organizations and strong monitoring, maintenance, and stewardship aspects. And then we also look at the level of community involvement and benefits or innovative partnerships. And Sarah kind of went over this, but we want to see that you have strong project partners. So we ask for things like letters of support. We want to see what kind of community support, involvement, and benefits you provide, and benefits to EDCs as well. So here are some grant application tips to review. We will evaluate your application based on your Measure AA eligibility criteria, which we discussed, as well as the community grants program prioritization criteria and your likelihood of success. And so when you are ready with all of these things, you will submit your initial application. And then, as we talked about, we will talk with you and you can revise your application. So both of these will be sent to grants@sfbarestore.org. So you'll have your Word application questions, you'll include your schedule and a budget, along with project maps and photos. And then optional, and something that we really like to see, are letters of support from your different partners and the people from the community. You can refer to our website for more information. The link is included below. And here's an example of a funded community project. So this is Candlestick Point Stewardship Project. We funded $100,000 to Literacy for Environmental Justice. This took place at Candlestick Point State Recreation Area in the Bayview Hunters Point neighborhood. So this group planted 6,500 native plants. They cleaned up trash. This program provided paid job training to 12 transitional aged youth through what they call their Eco Apprentice program. So this is a little bit of like workforce development. They fund these youth, and then they actually get paid to do this work. So it's not like they're volunteering and then they go out into the world and hopefully have some kind of job training. And this engaged more than 300 community members in stewardship. So it's a really cool project. And you can also view current funded projects on our website as well. So now we'll talk a little bit about the invoicing process. In general, you will be paid after your work is completed. So first you complete the work, you do your things, you pay upfront, and then you will get reimbursed by us. So the requirements for getting paid are that you keep all receipts and invoices, track staff hours that you intend to bill for by task, and submit with you submit your invoice with progress report at least quarterly or at most monthly, so kind of in between that time frame. And here's what the process looks like. You will email your invoice to sfbrainvoice@scc.ca.gov with your project name and contract, and you copy your project manager. This will include an unsigned invoice with the funding source, backup documents, and progress report. Then our contract staff will review invoices for any revisions. Then we'll notify your project manager for changes or that it's ready for review. Following that, your project manager will review the invoice for any issues and resolve these with the grantee if necessary. And then they'll route the invoice for DocuSign. Once all of this is completed, MTC Finance will send you a check. So just to review, this is how in most cases the invoicing process works. So in most cases, it's a reimbursement, not you don't get paid before you actually do the work. However, we also do have an advanced payment process. So this is an option really for grantees that have a challenging cash flow. And it's evaluated on a case-by-case basis. So not the default process. So if approved, this will be the payment method for the entirety of the grant, which means that you can't switch over halfway through your grant is done. You have to do it basically at the beginning. So you will request this via your grant manager so you'll send an email with your organization name, project name, the Restoration Authority grant agreement number, a brief explanation as to why advance payment is necessary, and then an example of the staff timesheet record showing time tracked to different projects or activities. This is only required if the grantee will be billing for staff time. And with that, I will open it up to questions. Thank you all for joining us and having an interest in doing projects with us. And we hope to, hear from you all. And go ahead. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or drop them in the chat.
We're also available by email. We monitor the grants at SFBRA Restore email pretty regularly. So if you have questions pop up later, feel free to reach out.
Also, I may need to allow for people to unmute themselves, so I'm not sure if they can do it on their own. Let me just check the settings. But for now, we can answer some of the chat questions.
Okay, yeah, I see a couple coming in from the chat. How are creek cleanups usually funded? We are we are an agency that funds like shoreline restoration projects. So if it's like the head of a creek that flows into the bay, that is under our jurisdiction as well. And one activity might be cleanup. Typically, we are funding restoration projects like invasive species removal, plantings, things like that. So in terms of how like a cleanup could be funded, we've seen some projects where cleanup activities are like part of a larger project that includes like plantings or invasive species removal. When you say compatible with, go ahead.
I was just going to switch off so you don't have to talk the whole time if you want.
Oh yeah, you can go ahead.
I was just going to answer Anna's question that not just compatible with habitat projects, but we require that you have a habitat project as part of your project. So it can't just be public access or just flood protection or just our last one, pollution or it has to include habitat restoration.
So we've seen some projects where there's like improvement of, say, a segment of Bay Trail, but the main goal of the project is to restore the adjacent wetland. So something like that.
The reason I asked was I just noticed there are other projects, regionally, like Adobe Creek and San Francisco Creek. So I just thought maybe there's a tie-in. in terms of flood protection, or part of, like you said, part of a larger project. So really, it's just the concept that I was trying to explore, because we did actually get a creek cleanup grant one time from the EPA, but this would be, I was just thinking of creeks, yes, that feed into San Francisco Bay that may have some pollution issues, but you're right, it would be part of a larger project. This is Mike Haggerty speaking. Thank you. It was a very great
Thank you.
presentation. I'll let other people ask questions.
Thank you. Yeah, and feel free to reach out for any follow-up conversation you might want. I see the next question. What is the range of project funding for each project? As you saw in some of the examples, I assume you're talking about range of like the funding amount. So it can vary greatly. Some projects request like a couple $100,000. Some projects that are like construction and implementation may need a couple $1 million. And when you submit your application in your budget, you'll be able to, split out like how much funding you need on average, like by year. Oh, I don't know if we mentioned, but typically a grant would range from like 1 to 3 years. And so, with some breakdown, we're also able to determine if we can fully fund the request or if we, look at some partial funding.
Yeah, and then to Thomas's question, the kind of feedback we offer is we'll look at your pre-app, which gives us an idea of what you want to do. We'll talk to you about eligibility, so how well you meet the program areas of Measure AA, and basically look at things that you can emphasize about your project that make it strong. Like you might not think to emphasize like certain elements like working with tribes or things like that. So we'll talk to you it's usually a 30 minutes call. And it's just a good conversation to have before you put in all the work of doing the full application. As we just covered, there's no funding minimum or maximum.
And the September 19th deadline is
yeah.
That's our guidance, just so there is time to actually schedule a consultation. Oh, funding match. It is not a requirement. If your project does leverage other funds from other sources, reviewers, will note that. So it is a prioritization criteria, but it's not a requirement.
As far as how much is available each year, it varies a little bit based on how many projects we've funded. So we won't really know that yet until a little bit later, but the generic baseline is 25 million, but it really depends. So it's probably going to be less than that this year.
Yeah, some projects have, multi-year commitments. So we'll know that number a little later in the year. Next, could a project focused on keeping trash and pollutants from entering an established wetland be considered a habitat project? The site we're looking at has trash dumping prevention as a main need and a large impact on wildlife. I'll say, why don't you follow up with us so we can learn a little more detail about your specific project. As I mentioned, like we've gotten some projects where, trash cleanup, pollution prevention is an aspect of the overall proposal.
Yeah, and then to Kai's question, if you're a CBO, I think it kind of depends on the scope of your project and how much time and opportunity you have. As we said, the community grants program maximum is $300,000. So if your program is under that amount, it's recommended that you apply through the community grants program. If you're looking to do, to do a bigger project with more funding, then maybe consider the grant round. The reason we encourage CBOs to apply for the community grant program is it has more support. It's not a competitive round like the regular annual grant round. So if you're not sure what the best fit is for your organization, you can email us or do a pre-app or the community grants app. They're both pretty short, so we can help you out if you're not quite sure, just with more information. But you shouldn't apply for both. That would be a lot of your time.
Oh, yeah, and yeah, I guess we should clarify. So for the regular grant round, there's no max or min, but for the community grants program, currently the max is 300,000. And Anthony's question, does the Restoration Authority ever connect support needs during the pre-op process, such as a CBO needing technical science support? Yes, we are happy to try and make those connections for a community-based organization that may want to link up with a more established, like restoration-focused entity, or we've also helped make the connections with landowner. If a CBO wants to be doing a project on land that's that they don't own. So yeah, talk to us.
Yeah, we have partners who want to help you, so definitely let us know. So we've been talking about the community grants program and the regular grant program, but both need the project to fall under at least one of the four programs of Measure AA. I know it's confusing to say program multiple times, but the main one's habitat restoration. Every project needs to have some element of that. The other three are public access, pollution prevention, and nature-based flood protection. So any iteration of that with flood protection in both of our grant programs are eligible. And feel free to go off mute if you don't want to type your question. Oh, we have a Q&A. I don't know if you two have been looking at that closely. We can go to that.
Oh, this was a question you answered. Yes.
We can sit in silence as long as we need, but if there's more detailed questions, you can always email us too.
Thanks everyone for joining today. And we look forward to hearing from some of you for a pre-application consultation and hopefully a full application. Oh,
Yeah, we got a few more.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Where do we get the applications? All our materials are linked on the website, and there's links to the website links through on the slides from today as well. So those can definitely be posted on our main webpage.
Yeah, just go to our grants page.
Okay, yeah.
And then Jennifer asked, would levee improvements with habitat restoration on the water side of the levees be considered a flood management project? I'd say it depends. You should reach out to us so we can understand more of the context, but it sounds possible. Any other lingering questions? Great, and I think we'll at least post this to our website. If I'm able to access your emails from the registration, I'll also send it out that way. I'm unfamiliar with the Teams format, so we'll find out. But either way, these will be posted to our website soon.
And reaching out to schedule pre-app, email our grants email.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. I'll try to send them out to the group.
Well, thanks, Sarah and Katya, for helping with this webinar.
Sure thing. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Have a good Friday.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye, Anthony.